Right. Hi, guys. Welcome to our first 2024 TRA Lunch and Learn. We are super excited to have you with us. For those that don't know me, I'm Brandy Borg Schmidt. The name got changed, so you're probably seeing a new name on your emails. And I'm the president of TRA for 2024, and we are super excited to get our first Lunch and Learn off the ground. We have a lot coming for you guys in Lunch and Learn this year, and also a couple of other programs that we're going to be throwing out there to give you guys more value for your membership with us. Today we are super duper excited to present this Lunch and Learn solely focused around caseload management. Our presenter today, Leanne Rollins Williams, Dr. Leanne Rollins Williams, CRC CFLE, is a clinical assistant professor in education, health, and behavior studies department at the University of North Dakota. She serves as program director of undergraduate rehabilitation and human services program. Dr. Williams has an extensive academic experience working with programs focusing on disability and rehabilitation at various universities. In addition, her professional experiences include work in the field of rehab in the areas of blindness and low vision, general rehabilitation counseling, human resource training development, and in corporate with the Walt Disney Company. Dr. Williams has held a variety of leadership positions at the local, state, regional, national, and international levels for professional rehabilitation associations. She has published research in peer-reviewed journals and co-authored 2 books, one which just came out last Friday, focusing on caseload and caseload management. Leanne is an amazing professional, but she is also an amazing human who I'm not only honored to work with in some capacities, but to call her a friend. So I hope you guys enjoy this session. Miss Leanne, take it away.
Okay, now I'm feeling pressure. I don't even know who that person is. I always listen to that stuff and I'm like, who is that person? First off, it is wonderful to be with all of you today. I am excited to talk about the sexy topic of caseload management. I always laugh and say that because most of us absolutely hate caseload management, probably. And often it is what we do each day. And it is what has been, if you're managers out there, part of your work with your individuals that you are supervising, and those of us in leadership roles, it obviously falls into policy and procedure and other things that we do. So today, not knowing who all would be present, what I thought I would do is just kind of go through a little bit about caseload management and talk to you a little bit about what it is, what it isn't. But I want to kind of lay some foundational work, if that's okay, before I even share my screen, and just tell you a little bit about what it is, isn't, and kind of what we're going to be doing today. Does that sound good to everybody? I knew you would be excited. I knew you would be excited. So even if your camera is not on, that is great. Yay, thank you, Robert. I just think that's amazing. So at least we know there are a few of us that love caseload management like me, and I love it. The goal for today is to have a little bit of fun. And I want to say that when we go to Lunch and Learns, I will go and it's almost painful. I'll be honest. I will show up, I'm in my camera, and I'm like, why did I even show up for this? It's a Friday right after lunch, and it's like a root canal. So the goal today is to have a little bit of fun. Please interact with me. I'm going to do the best that I can to keep up with the chat. I know Brandy and Cameron, hopefully someone out there in land will also help me with that, because I get to talking and I get excited. So please stop me at any time. And when I say that, even if you jump in, I'm okay with that. So turn off your mic or turn on your mic or go live and just be like, hey, Leanne, I'm seeing this. How can I work with this? I've had this situation. How do I work with that? And let's just talk about it, because the goal of today is not to just have a bunch of jargon or terms or pretty slides. The goal of today is to take something back that you can use in professional practice. Now, I am going to ask you a favor, and that is to hold me accountable for that. At the end of this time together, I'm going to leave obviously some time for us to have questions or thoughts, but I also am going to ask you a question. And that is, can you take one thing back with you that you can use? The goal of that is to hold me accountable because that's why we're here. It's not just about talking about what case and caseload management is, but we have to be able to implement it. And so for me, that's critical. And that's the key, because in the field, we have to be able to implement things very quickly because things change constantly. So we've got to be able to take things back and use them. Now, I am not here to tell you what you're doing is wrong. And I want you to also hear me say that. As a case management and caseload management individual that focuses as an expert kind of in this area, I want things to also strengthen what you're doing. So maybe what you're doing is phenomenal, and that is great, but maybe you can find one piece that can strengthen what you're doing in order to make a difference and make it a little bit better for you each day. So please know, I'm not trying to throw everything out the window either. I'm trying to truly support what you're doing and enhance that in professional practice. Does that sound pretty good to everybody? I knew you would be excited. Okay. Well, I'm going to try to share my screen, which is probably going to be a bit comical, but I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to go ahead and pull this up from the beginning, hopefully from the beginning, and talk to you a little bit about caseload management. Can everybody see this okay? Thumbs up? Everybody smiling? Okay. Well, first and foremost, welcome to caseload management. And I want to start off by talking with you a little bit about the 4 essential elements of caseload management. Now, first and foremost, I want you to think about that file. And I want you to think about the things that occur every day with the files that you have. Now, you may have files that are folders. You may have files that are electronic folders. You may have lots of files that are folders and electronic folders, but I want to talk to you about what's in those folders, because in order to move forward with success, we have to know about the things that influence us each day. Number 1 are personal elements. And I want to start off by talking about you. So I want you to point the finger at you really quick and go me. Okay, so everybody do that? Perfect, beautiful, I love it. So first and foremost, it is all about you. When you come into caseload management, you bring those aspects of who you are each day. And what I mean by that, when you are thinking about your techniques, when you are thinking about the different education, the different experiences that you have each day, personal elements are what you bring to that. Your licensure, your different licensure in different fields, your lack of licensure, your strengths as far as certain areas, maybe in medical terminology, or maybe it's in case management. But those personal elements that you have each day are what you bring to the table. Now, the second aspect are those client elements. Sometimes when our clients come in, they truly understand what those expectations are, and they know exactly why they're in front of you. Now, I kind of chuckle because coming from VR years ago and being a general case manager, as well as a blindness, low vision case manager with the state of Tennessee, that's this crazy accent, is that Tennessee accent. But with clients, a lot of times I found that clients sitting in front of me didn't have a clue why they were there. Has anybody else had that situation where they come in and they say, can I have that program? Or can I have that money? Or somebody told me to come here for work so that I can get some ticket or something. I don't know. But clients come to us with all of their own elements. Their elements of lack of transportation, their elements of being out with a disability, out of a system, maybe with work. They come with their own baggage elements as well as their good elements, their personalities, their value systems, their culture, all of those aspects of those elements that they bring. So when you're looking at us and you're looking at clients, you can see how both of us bring those aspects of elements to each of our positions. Now, I want to ask you, what do I mean by data elements? What are data elements? Can somebody talk to me about that? What do you think are data elements? Can somebody help me with that? Just unmic and let's just talk. You don't have to type if you don't want to, or type it in the chat. What are data elements?
It's the information that you're trying to collect so you can report it to either the federal government or the state government.
Perfect, Karen. Good job. Anybody else want to add to that? Good job. Thumbs up. Well done. Anybody
That's
else
what
want to
I
add?
was going to say.
Okay, so times 2. Times 2. Absolutely. Anybody else want to add to those? Can you think of anything else that you'd want to add? It's definitely those reporting aspects. No? Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put my fingers together. I'm going to rub them together because I want you to remember I did this. Data elements are also everything you touch on a daily basis. So those aspects of your reporting are very important. Absolutely, Karen and Robert both. When you are also thinking about data elements, I want you to think about all the documents, medical documentation. I want you to think about the things you print out. I want you to think about all the mail that you touch. I want to think the faxes, the aspect of electronic data, anything that you touch during the day is data, including something, and I think I left mine downstairs, called this thing called a phone. That thing that's got a computer on it, lots of apps that sometimes you want to throw in the trash if you're like me, but that is also data because you are accessing data on your phones or on your computers, right? So it's no longer just files in our hand, but it's all of this information at our fingertips. So we have to remember we're being bombarded by data. The fourth element is what I call lovingly the organizational element. And that element is kind of unique in the fact that when you're looking at this organizational element, it's all those policies and procedures, those aspects of what your organization puts as the highest priority, that then they say to you, hey, this is your priority. Now, I'm sure none of you have had that occur where you had a daily to-do list and you were working on that to-do list, and then someone comes in and says, scrap everything you're doing, this is a priority. None of you have had that, I know. And if you have, you know the frustration with that. And so these organizational elements, all of these come into play when we are looking at caseload management, and especially when we're looking at daily, weekly, monthly, overall caseload management. Now, I want to talk to you about a caseload management definition. And I want to talk to you about that because I'm sure when several of you said, yes, I'm so glad that this is a caseload management session, because I will be honest, friends, when we talk about caseload management, it is not the most fun topic. It is not like talking about counseling where we can talk about feelings and active listening and aspects of counseling. No, it is management. And so over the years, when I've done different sessions with different teams and when I've talked to different people, there are ways that we look at caseload management definitions. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about a couple of the different definitions, and then I want to break it out for you as we move down this journey of looking at caseload. First and foremost, one of the overarching definitions that I have found is that caseload management is a composite of duties and responsibilities, and it's directed toward relieving pressures from personal, professional areas, client areas, and some type of reporting area. Now, if you look at this definition, it's very reactive. Like you're constantly reacting to things. You're reacting to aspects of pressure in these different areas. Now, I want to give you a different way of looking at this, and we're going to break this out and talk about it because when people say the word case and caseload management, it's almost like in the pit of your stomach, you kind of go, ugh, you know? And so what I want you to do today is to leave with a sense of a proactive approach, a more, you're not going to fall in love with it, right? But you are going to have something where you go, okay, I can handle that. That's where this proactive approach comes in. It's a systematic process of planning, organizing, coordinating, and directing. Now, I want to draw your attention to that definition. Planning, organizing, coordinating, and directing. Now, the next one part of this says for effective counselor and manager. See that? You are both counselor and manager decision-making. To achieve functional control of factors that are related to your client or consumer, yourself, and your setting. But the goal is to anchor you in a proactive practice. Now, that is a loaded definition. It is a big loaded definition. So what I want us to do is kind of break this out and talk about what this means in the concept of maybe making it more applicable to what we do each day. First and foremost, as you break this out, you begin by looking at a systematic approach. You will see this slide again, I promise. It will come back as I move forward. When you look at yourself, I want us to start here with that first part of the definition, which is counselor and manager. You have to be both. And when you look at this, you begin to see the circles that overlap of your shared roles. Some of you, and you can raise your hand, how many of you would say, Leanne, I am a counselor? And you can raise your hand online. You can raise your hand here. I'll raise mine. Okay, I love being a counselor. It's why I came into this field, was to work with people. Now I'm going to raise my left hand and say, how many of you would say you're managers? Like, I can definitely be a leader. I can definitely be a manager. Okay, so some of you are like halfway going, I don't know, Leanne, that's a loaded question. Okay, a couple of people are raising, but how many of you would hold both hands up in the middle in those shared roles and say, I am great at both? Oh, Robert did. Okay, a couple of you guys did. I think that is wonderful. But I'm so glad that we have a few in here. But how many say to me, are you kidding me? There's no way. We do have to have a way. And what I mean by that, everybody, is that we have those shared roles every day. Whether we want them or not, we have to be both, right? So in order to anchor in a proactive practice, the first thing that we have to do is realize the roles that we have. We're not just paper pushers, though sometimes we probably feel like we are with case management. We are not just individuals who spend time counseling others, because sometimes we don't have time to do that. But we have to understand the shared roles, especially for those individuals who are out in the field, which is most of you. We have different roles as counselors. We have transitions. We have different types of agencies. We have academics here. We have all kinds of different areas of rehabilitation. So as you look at those shared roles, you have to understand what you do each day. Because in order to be successful with caseload management, we have to begin to see what we do in a reality of what we do, and not just accept those roles and say, well, I'm definitely a counselor, when maybe you learned to be a counselor, but you didn't necessarily learn to be a manager. Now, I want to talk to you about management the Leanne way. Okay. And I know some of you are beautiful managers as far as leaders, and you've been at senior leadership, and some of you are in those positions now. I want to talk to you about what I call the 5 essential activities that are involved in a management framework. And this may look very familiar to you because some of you are in leadership and you are implementing these daily. But I want you in that definition to go back to planning, organizing, coordinating, and directing. Now, the goal's in the center, and that goal is what? That goal is control. And so functional control is what we're looking for, if you remember that definition. But I want to break these out and talk to you a little bit about what this means with caseload, and then we're going to apply it. Do I have any questions or any comments to this point? Because I want to make sure we lay this foundation in order to spring forward. So I want to make sure I don't miss anything if anybody has a question. No, you with me? And you're awake. This is positive on a Friday and after lunch. We're still moving forward. That's amazing. All right. Well, let's step into first and foremost planning. Planning is a philosophy. Makes you think a little bit, doesn't it? Planning can be seen in 2 ways. Number one, planning can be seen as a mental activity. So before you do something, what do? You think about it, right? You spend your time thinking about planning it out. I want to go to Tahiti. I really would like to go there one day, but I want to go to Tahiti. So I'm thinking about Tahiti. I see all these beautiful pictures of Tahiti. I'm thinking. Planning is also a system, because what's in here as far as thinking has to then be put into place. So there has to be a systematic way that you think about Tahiti. Now, planning requires a common sense, or a sense of common purpose. It's like a river. When you're going down the river doesn't go in different directions. No, the river flows one direction. So the goal to get with planning is that it's not one goal, but it's the direction in which you're moving. It's not one plan, but the conscious selection of the plans as you move down the river. Now, we know that goals can upgrade, downgrade, and be changed, but you're still flowing in the same direction. Planning is built on the here and now. It's wonderful to say I want to go to Tahiti next year, but when next year rolls around, did I do anything to get there? Also, plans have to be part of a process. an ongoing, continuous process. It is great to talk about it today, and it's great to explore that plan. But have I run into any roadblocks? Is my plan 6 months ago the same plan that I need today? I don't know. Planning, friends, what one postpones, one really abandons. I'll do it later. I'll plan that later. Later never comes. I can promise you, I know that, because it's just like losing weight. I want to lose weight. I want to lose 5 pounds, but you know what? It's almost the holidays and I want to eat chocolate, and I really like chocolate and it likes me. And so we bond with chocolate or whatever you prefer. And so I'm going to put that off. I really don't need to lose that 5 pounds. I'll give you another example. Medical documentation. When I was a counselor, I used to hate when I got mail and got all those medical documents in because I knew I had to go over them. And I used to think to myself, I'll do this later. And then later was Tuesday. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow was Thursday. And then I got to Friday and I thought, do I really have to do this today? I don't want to do this today. So what one postpones, one really abandons. Also, I want to let you know a little secret. What requires of your time to sustain an obsolete program is 10 times what it requires to evaluate it, replace it, modify it, and move forward with success. Sometimes if you're like me, I'm my worst critic and I'm my hardest person. And I use humor a lot. You all have probably realized that. But when I'm looking at an obsolete program, sometimes I'm trying so hard to make it work because I think it will work, and it's not going to. So I have to step back and I have to realize that something has to change in order to be successful. And that's really caseload management. Sometimes my plan of maybe the way that I organize myself, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, just isn't working, but I keep trying, right? But it's taken a lot of your time, energy, and effort to sustain an obsolete program. Change is hard, but change is inevitable. It's the pain that's optional. And you have a decision to make whether you want to stay where you are or whether you can change without the pain. I gave you, and I'll give this to you as well. Brandy has this 6 key planning questions. These are just the who, what, when, wheres to provide to you as you step back into your professional role. Things that you can consider as it relates to planning. Each of these slides has tons of good information in it that I'm going to provide to you so that they can actually give you these slides so you can take them back and use them. Okay, so some of this we won't go over as much, but it's really built in for you. But you can definitely see how these planning questions make you think a little bit. The next aspect that I want to talk to you about is a little bit about being a skilled planner. And you manage by crisis, you have little sense of direction, and you can't do a goal. You can only do activities which are anchored to well-written objectives. So in order to get there, what you have to do is begin to organize yourself. Planning is great, but organizing is the first step that you're going to take to figure out what activities need to be accomplished. You have to establish an order of importance. And sometimes everything seems important, but it can't be. So we have to look at critical decision points, and we also have to look at integrating the resources that we have in order to take those action steps. Now, if you do not organize your plan, then what happens again is that everything seems ultimately important. You have crisis potential for everything, and you manage by what I call a LIFO or FIFO basis. Does anybody know what LIFO or FIFO means? And you can unmute and let me know.
Last in, first out, or first in, first out.
Bingo, Patty, great work. And does anybody feel like that last in, first out, or first in, first out is the way you go each day? I know I sure did. And sometimes you just don't know what's important and what's not. So this makes it easier. So when you're managing without being skilled in organizing, everything seems important. And as we know, everything can't be important, right? So we have to plan and organize, but we also have to coordinate. And part of coordinating is that counselor, manager, remember that middle shared roles? Sometimes, I don't know if any of you are like me, I use myself a lot when I think about getting a job done. I know I have a problem with this, and I am sure that none of you do. I'm the type of person that I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, when it's done my way, it's always the best way, right? Like if you'll just do it my way, then things are fabulous and they turn out the way they need to be and they're exactly what they need to be. And it's a great way to do it. Sometimes. Now, sometimes what I need to do, and is hard for Leanne to do, is to let go and work through others, through teams, through people, through staff that support me, through assistants, through maybe administrative staff, or whomever this might be for you. This does involve a certain amount of delegation, and it can be very scary because delegating means that you have no control over the outcome at times. Now, does it mean that the total outcome's out of your control? No, but pieces of that outcome may be out of your control. And that's kind of scary, at least for me, because when I used to do things, I wanted it done right. And I knew if I did it, it would be done the way I needed it to be. Well, people may actually, and I learned this the hard way, they may actually get to the same outcome, but they just maybe go a different direction to get there. And so I had to learn to kind of let go and be okay, kind of like Elsa, let it go, let it go. I'm not going to sing to you because you would be like, that would be scary. But when you're thinking about letting go and letting someone else support you, sometimes it's hard, but we have to do a quick self-check to really say, hey, this is what's best. And this is what helps me as well. It's called self-care for a reason. If you do not start taking care of yourself, there's no one else that's going to do that. And so we have to make sure that we utilize our resources correctly, coordinate the way that we need to, so that we can have success in the outcomes in the future. Now, if you're not a skilled coordinator, then what happens is you keep all that work and responsibility. It's going to cause frustration and burnout, but I can also promise you, by doing quality assurance with the state of Florida as well as with Tennessee, the quality goes down and the priorities become confused. It is hard when you're trying to focus on everything to make anything a priority. Sometimes you have to coordinate through others to ensure success. Now, planning and organizing gives way for making and enforcing decisions, which is directing. Now, I want you to think of this like a chorus, almost like a symphony. When a conductor stands up, has everybody been to the symphony? Everybody knows what I mean by the symphony orchestra. You've sat in front of a band. Maybe you've been in band. When the instructor or the conductor steps up, right? And they're in front of this band. What happens? You hear all this craziness. Do you remember that? It's like, and everybody starts to tune their instruments, right? And it's chaos. It is chaos when they are warming up. But then what happens? When that conductor begins to direct, the most unique thing occurs in that all of that chaos then becomes something beautiful. And it's a symphony, or it's a piece of music that all of those pieces come together to make a whole. When you direct effectively, it gives you an opportunity to make and enforce the decisions that you have been outlining in your planning and organizing and coordinating phase. You learn to really focus on the effective decisions, and you begin to understand your action styles. You also begin to see that proposed plan in those action steps. Now, some of you are do-it-nowers, and you need to watch that. It's a wonderful trait, but you can't do everything now. So you want to make sure that you put that on your plan. Some of you are what I lovingly say are my knowers. You don't know when to say no. Leanne, can you plan the party? Yes, I can. Leanne, can you do the birthdays? Yes, I can. Leanne, can you go to lunch and plan the luncheon? Yes, I can. Leanne, can you take on this responsibility? Absolutely. And then I will say, I can't believe how busy I am. This is overwhelming. Please be aware to say no when you need it. Again, self-care is built in here, and it's so important because you know who you are out there. Some of you are yesers and some of you are knowers. Also, for my yesers, you can say no. For my knowers, say yes sometimes. You never know how it'll turn out. And kind of be aware of who you are and know thyself skill. Okay? Now, when you're not in charge of a caseload with directing, you really become passive and you rob yourself of the time and resources to do a really great job. Time is not just physical time. It's also your time, because you are the most valued resource in caseload management. It's not the paper and the medical and all of those aspects. It's your knowledge, skills, and abilities that make caseload management so important. So when a counselor or a professional feels like that they are not directing effectively, then what happens is they have no confidence in their decisions, and they don't have a feeling of power or authority over what they're doing. They feel like everyone else is in control but me. The goal is what I call functional control. Remember the center? There are things that we can't control other people, can we? We can't control when people show up. We can't control what people think. We cannot control what's outside of us. But when you're looking at caseload management, the power of caseload management happens when you gain control through planning, organizing, coordinating, and directing. It leads to functional control over the caseload. It's the meshing of responsibility with the authority to back up your decisions. It's the way that you can explain why you're doing what you're doing. When you start off in a process, sometimes if you're just putting out emergencies or putting out fires, there's no rhyme or reason to what you're doing. You're just doing it. But when you begin to look at management functions and control your caseload, then what happens is you can explain it. Now, good or bad, right or wrong, I never said that what you were doing was 100% accurate. But what I did say is that you begin to plan things out so that if it is incorrect, or if you do make a wrong decision, then you can at least explain it. And the reason that's critical is so that your manager, someone who's supporting you, or the team can really evaluate that, come back to the table and say, hey, this is where we could have done that differently. Here's where that strength may have been had you made a different decision. But it gives you the opportunity to talk about that. And it gives you the opportunity to have a process. And that's what I want you to think about as far as instead of reacting, being proactive. Proactive is a process. Reactive is just doing things to do it. And I'll let that sink in just a little while. Hopefully that gives you some foundation as we move into something I call time. Now, assumptions are what we believe to be true when we act as we do. Faulty assumptions about anything, but especially about time, leads to poor time management. And I want to talk to you a little bit about these, because when you're looking at caseload management functions, you've got to look at your time. Now, I want to talk to you about some facts and some myths about time. You ready? Thumbs up, everybody ready? Headed into time? Because if we are going to talk about caseload, we have to talk about what you're doing, which is time. First and foremost, I love this one. You can manage time. I can manage my time. I can manage my time effectively. Sure you can. The problem is that you can only manage your activities in relation to specific time periods. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No more, no less. You cannot manage time. You can manage activities. Number two, you can save time. Now, I want to tell you about my saving time. If I could save time, everyone, I would bank it. And when I did get to Tahiti, I would never return. What I would do is I would spend all of my time on vacation. I would spend all of my time other places. Some of you say, if I'll just do it this way, I can save time. If I can do it that way, I'll save time. If I do 50 things at once, I'll save time. Time goes on at the same rate, day in, day out. Again, it's the same 24 hours, 7 days a week. Now, we all know people in our office that I call them they buzz around. Now, that's my term. But in your office, you know that one person who's just go, 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 go. They're just into everything. They're just so active. They're getting so much done, or at least that's the perception. See, there's no direct relationship between the work that they're doing and positive accomplishments. Insecurity, when you're looking at positive accomplishments, doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing the right things. It just means they're doing a bunch of stuff. So when you're sitting there with insecurity about maybe what you should be doing more of, or what you should be accomplishing more of, or that you're working on the wrong things, you're actually burning your time like paper in a wood stove. Instead of focusing on maybe time management, focusing on that plan, doing something that's more action oriented. Because again, just because they're moving around doing a bunch of stuff doesn't mean that they're actually doing the right things. Last but not least, some of you are like me, I'm a workaholic. I'm an openly admitted workaholic. I love it. I eat it. I sleep it. I breathe it. It's one of those things I love to do. However, the longer I work, the more you get done. No. Those of us who come in first thing in the morning, those of us who come in and stay till midnight, I will tell you this. Time worked is a measure of input, results measures output. A lot of people over the years have looked at me and said, Leanne, if you will just give me one more hour in the day, the things I could accomplish. And I always smile and I always kind of chuckle inside, because what I say about caseload management is this: if I gave you 1 hour, you'd want 2. If I gave you 2, you'd want 3. If I gave you 3, you would want 4. And you would continue to tell me if I gave you 1 more, it would be more helpful. It's not about the time. It's about what we do in that 7.5, in that 8, in that 9, whatever those hours are of your day. It's what we accomplish in the time frames. It's not about the extra that I can give you. It's all about the management of our activities and what we're doing. Now, with caseload management, one of the things I want to say is that, as I've said before, effectiveness is doing the right things. Efficiency is doing things right. And the goal for us as caseload management practitioners and professionals in this area, and as teaching others or as talking to others or as being leaders to others, you don't have to be in a leadership position to show someone else the things that have worked for you. You can be in any position to do that. But the goal is to do things right and to also do the right things. So we want to be efficient and effective, not just one or the other. When you're looking at time management principles, I put these on here for you because if you're like me, sometimes I need something fresh. I need somebody to tell me, hey, this has worked for you. So I wanted to provide 10 areas for you to consider today. Number 1 is planning, and we've talked a little bit about that you need to plan things. Number 2 is concentration, and concentration is something that is very important, and you have whatever is in front of you that's in front of you. I want you to look at your desk, wherever you are right now. Just look down. I'm not going to ask hands. I'm not going to ask anything. No judgment here. But some of us have one thing on our desk. Some of us, if you're like me, I'm so glad you can't see my desk right now, right? Because it has stuff everywhere. And so concentration means being able to know what is in front of you and focus on it. Okay. You've got to be able to focus on the task at hand and not have 500 things going on at once. Get one of those file folder things that you put up top. Get a drawer that you put things in and pull them out, but concentrate on what's in front of you. Tyranny of the urgent. Urgency on your part does not what? Constitute an emergency on mine. You have to know the feeling of tyranny of the urgent. Now, sometimes our agencies make it an emergency and we have to kind of toss that one out. But I think it's very important that someone else's emergency, because their lack of planning, does not hit you with your caseload. Okay, you got to remember that. Selective neglect, limited response, I always put on here. Sometimes I would have those cases that I would be evaluating medical documentation and I would get stuck. Like I just couldn't get beyond it. This is what I mean when I say put it next to you. Put it out of sight so that you can focus on some things and then you come back to it. Give it an aging period. Maybe you just need to step back and come back to it and look at it in the future. Not too far in the future, but come back to it maybe in an hour or so. Always have alternatives. Some of you all are out in the field. Some of you are in your offices. Some of you are in different settings. Always have an alternative. If a client or consumer doesn't show up, or if a student doesn't show up, or if a class is canceled, or if you're supposed to go do something in working with an agency and something happens, always have something with you to move you forward on something else. Whether it's a case, whether it's medical documentation review, whether it's to figure out your next steps, whatever it is, always have an alternative. Plant unavailability is something that I've seen lots of people be able to utilize, but you have to be open with your communication. Planned unavailability is, say, that 30 minutes in the morning when you first come in, It's on a Monday, a Friday, something that's definitely negotiated with your supervisor or that your company knows what you're doing, but it's where you're not available to anyone. Now, this is not for aspects of social media. This is not to talk to your friend. This is not to go get a cup of coffee and take a self-care break. This is literally planned and availability time to be able to focus on tasks that are in front of you that need that 100% concentration. Can't be 4-hour blocks unless you work that out, but just something that's reasonable in your specific area. Visibility is the other one that I've learned. Remember that chocolate I told you I loved? Well, I've learned not to keep it on my desk, because if you look on your desk, if you're like me and I used to keep candy for students on my desk, problem is students didn't get to eat it. I did. And it was the kind that I liked, and it was right in front of me. So if you want to increase your likelihood of eating chocolate, I am 100% going to tell you it works if you keep it in front of you, because I did it. Now, if you would rather keep, maybe say you want to increase the use of a planner, keep it on your desk. If you want to decrease an activity or something that you're doing, put it away. So if you want to switch to pens from pencils, if you want to focus on certain aspects, then put it in front of you, because that's what you'll focus on. Clarity and brevity. I call it the hit and run method. Get in, say what you got to say, and get out. Same thing with people that work with you every day. Clear, precise, brief, so that you can go back to what you were doing and so they can go back to what they're doing and it doesn't interrupt their day. If it is longer, schedule some time with them so that you both can sit down together. Habit formation. Now, I need for you to work with me a little bit here, and I'm going to spread this out. Can everybody not write or anything, and put your hands in the air? You don't have to turn your camera on, and kind of shake your fingers, okay? And everybody can hopefully see me. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to interlock your hands for me. Just put your hands together. Just put your hands together. Everybody put their hands together? Well, I'm going to ask you a rhetorical question. What thumb is on top? Can you tell me? Even those of you no cameras, doesn't matter. What thumb's on top? Mine's the right. Okay, so I've got some lefts. I can't left. What is up with that? Left? I'm just kidding, Patty. Okay, so right's on top. Now I want you to unlock those hands and lock them the opposite direction. I always have to think about this. Okay. Feels a little weird, doesn't it? Everybody's going, let go, let go. Okay, can you cross your arms for me? Cross your arms for me. All right. What arm's on top? Mine's a right. Anybody a left out there? Okay. Now I want you to uncross them and recross them the opposite direction. Is that comfy? Okay, I'm getting a lot of thumbs down on that one. Okay, you can let go because I know it's super uncomfortable. These are classic examples of habit formation. Each day with your caseloads, sometimes we get into habits. And so we have to be aware of what those habits are. I didn't ask you to take your index finger on your right hand, interlock it with your left hand. Your next, I just said what? Put your hands together for me. I also didn't say scoop your hand under your left bicep and no, I just asked you to cross your arms for me. So there are things that we do each day as habits that truly may not even be something we're aware of that are causing problems in what we're doing with our caseloads. So we have to be aware of the habits that we have every day. When I come into the office, I want to meet and greet people, but am I staying 30 minutes when I should stay 10? I love my social media. I want to check LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I'm addicted to it. I'll admit it. But when we check it, am I staying on it for hours, or am I spending too much time on my phone and social media? What are the things that are causing my habits that maybe I don't even realize? Last thing is managerially imperative. And managerial imperative is getting through work and making things more focused in a management perspective. So that'll help you there. But these are 10 basic principles that I want to give you to take back today as you consider how to manage your caseloads more effectively. Now, with that, I'm going to challenge you as I kind of sum up today. I want to challenge you to do something, and it's up to you whether you decide that you want to do it or not. But I'm going to challenge you to do it because I told you I wanted you to take something back with you that you can implement, right? First and foremost, I want you to set some goals and objectives for what you're going to do to incorporate what we've talked about today into caseload management. And case management, either way. But number one, they have to be your own. Now you're looking at me going, of course they're mine, Leanne. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Not necessarily. I know my mom years ago, she had the best intentions, and she wanted me to have all kinds of great outcomes. She wanted me to be a nurse. Guess what? I'm not a nurse. But when I used to set goals years ago, they used to be for nursing. And why? Because she wanted me to be a nurse, and I didn't want to let her down. And so I was trying to show her that I was trying to be a nurse. Well, those objectives and those goals weren't my own. And so I was never going to be able to achieve that because they were based on somebody else and what they wanted for me. Also, I don't really write stuff down. I do now, but I didn't then. Your goals and objectives have to be your own, and they have to be written. And I know that that sounds so basic, and you're probably going, but Leanne, we're in an age of computers. Why do they have to be written? That's bizarre. I don't care if it's written and you see it every day on your computer, or whether it's written down on a piece of paper. I don't mind, but they have to be written. And the reason that they do is because you don't look at them and you don't consider them. What happens is time passes, and the goals that were relevant 3 months ago are no longer the goals that are relevant now. And if they're not written down, you don't pay attention, and you don't upgrade and downgrade those goals like we talked about earlier. Now, there's 5 criteria I'm going to challenge you as you're writing your objectives and as you're making them your own. It's called SMART, the SMART way. We want to be smart with what we do. We want to be specific to what our goal is going to be, or our objective. We want it to be measurable. It's great to say I want to lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks, but it's also great to say I want to lose 20 pounds. One is measurable. Obviously, I'm probably not going to lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks, but I might lose 2 pounds. So at least I can measure it. Attainable and achievable. It has to be attainable and achievable. It cannot be, I'm using weight because that's the classic. So I'm just going to throw myself, I will never be a size 2. I've never been a size 2. I'm not built to be a size 2, and it's not going to happen. I've had this realization with myself. Okay. It's not attainable and it's not achievable. It's also not realistic or relevant to who I am. It's not a realistic thing. Some of us, I know my high school reunion came up. I don't know about you all, but I was dreading this high school reunion because it's a big one. And I know I started school when I was like 2, and I'm super young, but this was a big high school reunion. And so realistic and relevant, you start going, I want to look good in these black outfit, or I want to look great in that. So I'm going to go into this mode of a month. I'm going to be so fit, and I'm going to run every day, and I'm going to eat ramen noodles, and I'm going to do all this stuff, and I'm going to look fabulous. Well, I waited a little late to look fabulous, and it was okay with what I looked like anyway. But it wasn't realistic and relevant to have all these expectations to make all these drastic changes to get an outcome immediately. We have to plan in order to achieve that outcome. And that's what's important about being realistic and relevant. The other thing is it has to be time scheduled. If I want to go and start to set these objectives, then they have to have benchmarks. What are you going to be doing 2 weeks from now? What are you going to be doing a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now? You have to have time scheduled. When are you going to start? I want to start with a planner, and I want to start looking at my planner. When? Today? Right after we're done? Or tomorrow morning? Or maybe you start first thing Monday. Get the weekend out of your way. But it has to be time scheduled. I challenge you, as we have talked today, to kind of step out of that mold and set some SMART goals and objectives for yourself. Set some areas that you feel, even if it's personally, not just professionally, set some SMART goals for self-care and to take care of yourself as a caseload manager. It's so important. And what I wanted to do, I've got about 10 minutes, I think. I wanted to just open this up for conversation, see if anybody had anything to add, see if this, the goal was to give you one thing that you could take back. that you could begin to use in your professional or personal practice, right? Whatever you're doing with yourself. So number one, I hope we accomplish that today. But number two, if you have something that's just burning that you want to ask, or maybe something to add, I just wanted to give everybody a time to do that. And so I was just going to open up the floor right now for any questions or comments or anything like that. But we have, Gina Oswald and I have a caseload management book that just came out on Friday with Springer. And if anybody looks at that and you say, Leanne, I would really love this chapter, like this chapter about case documentation, or this chapter about AI and technology, or this chapter would just be really something I'd like to read. If it's okay, what I would like to do is just ask Brandy or someone there that if you see this online and you have something, just to let them know. I'm happy to share this with you because I feel like that for me, it's more important to give you resources than to equip you with a bunch of books that don't matter, stuff that doesn't matter. And so if any of these chapters resonate with you, again, just let us know so that we can get this information to you. To me, it's just very, very important. More than that, what I'd like to say is I appreciate you being here. I know that it's tough to take time away from your job, to take lunch break, to do those things for professional development. And I just want to thank you for being here. I know how hard that is, and you don't hear that enough. You don't hear enough that you're appreciated, and you don't hear enough that you're valued. And so I just wanted to say that today and say I've so enjoyed spending time with you, this brief time that I get to do today with you. And thank you for what you do every day. I appreciate each of you, and I hope to get to know some of you. I know, Brandy, there's some new names on here of people I don't know. So please reach out anytime if I can support you in any way, or if you need to brainstorm something about case and caseload, or if you need any suggestions, maybe about a tickler system, let me know.